Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with a former world champion Terran in the red. It's Micro Jackson, ByuN. And beating me to the punch, we have Cyril's greatest stunt double, the Zerg in the blue. It's Solar. In a best of 3 Terran versus Zerg tournament showdown with a new balance patch, a new set of maps, and the same way me begging you to smash that like button. Maybe even subscribe. Oh, we got the algorithm. And Jimmy, what are we at? Somebody will translate in the comments. 1,722 likes on this video, on this cast, and I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I'd do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. As these two facing off like they have for pretty much every single balance patch in StarCraft 2 history. And just based on the single English word in this conversation, I believe Solar is referencing how this map, Old Republic, is so similar to the map Cloud Kingdom, which kind of, the iconic old school map that really defines late game macro, even to this day. And if you remember Cloud Kingdom fondly, like it was yesterday on the ladder, time flies, doesn't it? Hopefully both the back pain and the retirement fund are manageable at this stage. But, ByuN, a command center first. Absolutely no shame and endless greed, the Terran way. I think that's lore accurate. Meanwhile, Solar apparently just came back from vacation to the new balance patch. Did he know something we didn't? But it was several weeks without Solar, despite being one of the best Zergs in the world. But I'm very glad that we have someone who's willing to sign up and face off against ByuN and gestures to pretty much every single tournament. And the patch itself, one of our most dramatic, especially recently. With Banelings having plus 5 HP again after speed, Microbial Shroud being now a budget Dark Swarm with questionable veracity, reduces range damage by 50%, but it takes Infestor energy, takes an upgrade, and those are things that are kind of rare to come by. But if anybody's going to use it, I think Solar is on the short list of options. He has a tendency to experiment, maybe a little bit more than some of the other Zergs. ByuN, on the other hand, possibly the least experimental of all players, but will certainly be limit testing some of the changes, like siege tanks that can't be abducted, Widow Mines that burrow faster with the upgrade, Vikings that are cheaper, Ghosts that are now slimmed down in our light units, but only cost 2 supply and have 125 HP. So, in my opinion, against everything but Banelings, statistically that's a buff. Thankfully, those Banelings have a bit more HP to close the distance now, so we'll see how that plays out. Also, Hyperflight Rotors, Banshee speed a little bit quicker to research, and Liberators have slightly reduced vision range, which makes them less effective at harassing mineral lines, because they don't have enough vision to see the very edge of that range. But as long as you have something to spot for them like their siege tanks, you'll be fine. So, the changes in general, I do think Terran versus Zerg brought a little bit closer. Most of my concerns and commentary have been about the lopsided nature of the Protoss versus Zerg matchup, but thankfully, to most of our discerning individuals, there's no Protoss here today. So, TVZ. We even have more time to fill, as so far a singular unlucky Zergling gunned down as it tried to come up to the natural. Now, the ByuN is... I almost wanted to stop it there, but ByuN is so willing. ByuN will play 30-minute, 40-minute, 50-minute games in any tournament at any time of the day, and even then, offer a draw. I'm just remembering Raynor versus ByuN. He's willing to play an hour-and-a-half long best of 3, and then do it again in the next round, and then wake up 6 hours later from, I assume, a power nap, and sign up for another tournament. It's actually madness how often ByuN, Hero, and Clem sign up for these weekly tournaments. I mean, I guess it's just the ladder for them, because they're not going to get any competition on the actual ladder. Unless they're playing with each other, which they could probably pull off anyways. Crazy. Double engineering bay for ByuN. Maybe we should talk about the actual game. No! We made it 5 minutes! New record. Definitely not. Double gas at the natural. It's just full production from the very start. There's only barely an admission that the enemy might make units. We see a handful of Hellions working at the edge of the creep. An Overlord was poked away. The creep continuing to spread across the map. A fourth base for Solar as he passes the 60 drone mark at 5.5 minutes. But double engineering bay for ByuN, as well as a third base. He's just straight up, in a very literal sense, walled off the natural. The third base incrementing out the SCVs. And this is straight to the most possible macro game we could ever have. Oh, okay, I'll take it. No. 100 supply. Come and gone now. 69 drones for Solar. Pretty nice start, but the Banshees come in to cut down on the number. But there's already... Thing is, these Banshees... The Banshees existing is one of the most important things. Alright? You existing. Second most important. Banshee's still above it, but still. Pretty good. Like and subscribe for existential love. Parasocial, I guess. Another wall cutting things off. Yeah, those Cloud Kingdom flags. If we just... I'm sorry for this. Real quick. Ah, yes. There's the Cloud Kingdom vibe we're looking for. The purple map from Wings of Liberty. And then Eternal Empire from early Legacy of the Void. Which I feel like this may be a Old Republic, Eternal Empire, Cloud Kingdom. Wait a second. And if you're watching this, you still have a couple days to vote in the TL map contest and decide what new maps are going to be on the ladder. I have a feeling if the players are allowed to vote, this one might make it, but... The siege tanks, already. One siege tank from the high ground, one from the low. The Zerglings get the surround. But what a nice, idyllic choke point here, near the beautiful ethereal pond. As the splash damage indeed washing over the Zerg, but Solar has 4-5 bases. No macro hedge yet, but he's building Hydralisks. That ranged option that, honestly, is going a little underutilized, in my oh-so-humble and modest opinion. A lot of people say that. Very smart people in the comments. The Queen... Brenda, what are you doing? You could say I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. Yeah, I see that. Sorry. Back there for... Well, the Marines still stemming forward. 2-2 on the way for both sides. ByuN gonna have about a 30-second advantage. Solar incrementing out those Hydras, and notably no infestation pit. Gonna be stuck on lair tech for a while yet, but it's not like ByuN is progressing too quickly. Just got his 4th command center. Working towards 200 supply, though Solar should beat him to the punch unless something goes horribly wrong. The Zerglings, a single Banshee, but the siege tanks themselves their own greatest enemy. Meanwhile, the Lings and Banes closing in, but the Banelings, he pulled back at the last moment, and now they have their speed done, which means plus 5 HP, which in most cases, based on math, yeah, I'm saying it like that, one more Marine shot, which is still not too many, especially when the Marines are jammed in the killing field. Oh my, the kill box through the mineral line. Those Marines, 5 kills, 4, 6. Wow, the KD ratio. Well, the Zerglings and Banelings eventually able to overrun, and even more Zerglings coming across the map. Actually, the same amount. It's just the ones that were left over from the first attack. But ByuN, those Widowmines, Drilling Claws is not even being researched, let alone completed. So the Widowmines, not the new fancy upgraded version, but just good old-fashioned, still very dangerous version that remains cloaked after fire. That does not remain cloaked after firing. But Solar has strongly held. He comes through the rocks in the center. Both sides. Widowmine's going to take big bites, but the Zerg are overwhelming. Solar clears the field. And, well, ByuN plummets to a 6 supply lead. He picks up 4 full medevacs of units and just flies away with the survivors. The Hive, though, Lurker Den, is on the way. And ByuN does not have a Ghost Academy. Nor does he really have much tech in general. Just the Marines, the Marauders, the Mines, and the Medevacs, the M&M sort of composition that is so effective against lair tech, but Lurkers can literally slice right through it. The Queen's on the right flank being driven back. The Monarchy in a precarious spot here during the Old Republic. Wings, Bane's gonna look for the wraparound, trying to draw the mine in. ByuN retargets, but it costs him too much time and the mine is taken down. Meanwhile, left side, another group of units. And the Hellbats are stuck in the wreckage. Banelings crashing in. Some of the medevacs caught. Planetary holds the back line. Meanwhile, oh no! The medevacs knocks down one with all hands, and ByuN, a lackadaisical flight path leaves him right in front of the Hydralisk, and they're taken out of the sky with all hands. Vipers on the way, lurker range, adrenal glands, and Solar has taken all the initiative. Another command center is vulnerable. No planetary will try to fly away. Double drop at the natural, gonna drop behind. Solar anticipating, pulls back on both sides. But the evolution chambers, he's trapped in a location of his own design. Oh no, the Marine's gonna gun down the Spore Crawler. The Queen's taking out the medevacs eventually. But one Baneling will... It's not done. It's not over. There are two Marines. The Queen will die. They're still going. Meanwhile, two brothers. Here they go, killing again. He's still going on the other side, but the main action down the center. Parasitic bomb on multiple medevacs. The Hydra's helping to knock him out of the sky. Most of them badly bruised. This medevac, the Marines finally cleaned up. And Solar, with only 90 drones left. A massive late-game economy. And Solar maintains a slight but noticeable income advantage. On top of that, ByuN has lost a lot of his key units. Starport units are the hardest to come by right now. And they are exclusively medevacs so far, of which he still has 8 of them. And this is one of my main criticisms of literally the second or third best Terran player in the game. Him and his metaphorical son Clem have a tendency to go into straight autopilot. Marines, Marauders, medevacs, and scatter those mines in for flavor. But no Liberators, no Vikings. Vikings maybe not the ideal choice, but nothing to really zone things out. Just try to stay mobile on the field, and you know, in many cases that can pay off. Widowmine shot from downtown takes out a swath of Banelings. The Queen standing in the way of the bio ball will just be rolled immediately. And the Banelings trying to roll in, but the Marauders keeping them from closing the distance until the Marines step too far forward. Another Queen done down. Vipers fly in now. Parasitic bomb is a great option, but not great enough in order to stop all of this. Another Widowmine, another set of Banes. The Marines are left behind. The command center is lifted on the right flank, but ByuN, for the most part, I think still going to be able to stabilize back at home. Solar, as these two, a slow start means we ramped up into a full-scale bloodbath across the field, brawling in the middle of the map as opposed to just around the edges. That's how you know it's a big macro game. 350 Zerglings, 114 Marines have died thus far, and I think that's just the beginning. The Ghost coming out with 25 more HP. They do die in 2 or 3 less Banelings. I think slightly upgrade dependent, but they just have more HP overall, which makes them better against gestures to literally everything else. Of course, you can't just hand wave over Banelings. Unless you have rapid fire on snipe, I guess. Hydras, Lings, Banes, that mass Zerg composition. The Zerglings cut down. Building armor and high-sec auto-tracking on the way. Short on the heels of the 3-3 upgrades. ByuN not slouching on those infrastructure upgrades in the late game. But here come 2 Vipers, full of energy. One of them bruised, but... well, the Ghosts are on the field, tries to line it up, yanks the Ghosts in, and slice the alley-oop maneuver. Meanwhile, the Planetary Fortress will thin out the Banelings. The Lurkers are closing in, and ByuN is pushed back up against his own bases. But they are holding for now. The Vipers with still enough energy for a blinding cloud or a parabomb. He splits, he stims, he knocks out one of the Lurkers. Awkwardly, both sides have units burrowed over to the right flank, just hitting the northern base. Great parasitic bombs, doing terrible, terrible damage to the medevacs across the board. Though not enough to really knock them out. Hydras lunge away yet again. Another. A brutal slice through the bio ball, and ByuN starting to dwindle in supply, whereas Solar is maxed out with money in the bank. The sheer amount of medevacs above lunges away with the Hydras. But the Lurkers, Snipes lined up, no Infestors on the field or in production. A Nidus is in production though, looking for alternative angles. And the reason I call Solar Serral's stunt double is, what does a stunt double do? Looks close enough to the star while doing, I'm not going to say they're dirty work, but definitely more dangerous and physically intensive things. And they're probably much more likely to get hurt in the process. Solar has a very similar style to Serral, but he has a tendency to get bruised a lot more along the way. And we see here that late game prowess, but unable to really close the distance enough to break the bio ball with the ghosts in tow, but still looking for alternatives. Overseer headed towards the main, the Nidus defense team, and with ghosts only costing 2 supply, 13 ghosts, that's 13 more supply than ByuN would have had before the patch. That's another entire medevac of Marines and Marauders. Or, you know, like half a dozen more ghosts, which seems like the most likely option. Oh no, another Widowmine! He tries to lunge, but it's the Banelings that will suffer most. ByuN still barely holding on to his outlying bases, whereas Solar has his entire half of the map, and he's trying to move forward. It's 7 bases right now. A Liberator siege is up, though. So the Liberator no longer has the vision to see the edge of its own range, but you can scan that. Here you see it demonstrated. Especially, and this is the Liberator without range. Once it gets the range upgrade, well, it gets even harder. One of the most interesting nerfs I've seen. Meanwhile, though, the Banelings are just crashing through into the natural, though. Didn't really focus on the planetary. Will eventually get it. Rolls right through 18 SCVs alongside. And ByuN, he loses some of his economy, but there is an opportunity maybe to turn this around right as Solar has to rebuild. Solar has 5 Lurkers. I think most of them are in the Nidus, one of them right alongside. But he has to break this army. It just has a bunch of ghosts. Yes, there's a lot of Banelings, but there's a lot of Marines and Marauders to cover for them as well. And as the Banelings thin out, well, this is where Infestors have a tendency to come in. Lines up the Snipes on the Hydras. Ghosts microing back. Banelings closing in, and Solar gonna take out a lot of the medevacs mid-fight. A lunge doesn't really do anything, but it looks dramatic. And the Nidus at the back. It looks like ByuN has been whittled down to the point of... Oh, and there it is. 3 Infestors on the way. Solar realizing that you might be able to knock them out, but until you can completely pin them down, it's almost impossible to deal with the Mass Ghost effectively. ByuN, though, on the ropes. 81 to 99 army supply. He still has a lot of command centers. 5 orbital commands, several stock command centers, still the planetary at the 12 o'clock. Nidus coming in place. Then Diascan. Casual Viper knocked out, straight a little far forward. Costly. Oh, a Widowmine drop to make things more difficult on the high ground. How many Lurkers? The Lurkers are still in the Nidus, but Solar hasn't found the opportunity to pop them out quite yet. Solar, wake up! 100 APM is glacial, obviously, for... Ooh. Awkward. Widowmines will deal with their burrowed counterpart, as technically the Lurker couldn't see them. Nidus at the back of the 3rd. Some changelings in the main, but the Nidus defense team is in place. This is a decoy, though, for the main attack down the center. Widowmine dragged out. I think it prevented the depot from raising, delaying this even further. Even more damage going to be dealt. Throws out a casual fungal. Doesn't... It hits 1 medevac. Burrow is done. 15 SCVs dead. And ByuN in trouble. Another base on the right side. Solar is now expanding clearly to ByuN's side of the map. But I'm not sure he's... He doesn't think he can keep those bases, but by dragging any sort of attention, it might be worth it. There's still... the Widowmine. Diffused. By sacrificing a precious Zergling, but, you know, it counts. Meanwhile, 3, 4, 5... he's just scanning everywhere. I mean, 6 orbital commands. That gives you quite a bank of scans. Even though ByuN isn't maxed out, he still does need mules when possible. Widowmines dragged out, not finding the connections on the Banelings. The Bio Ball is mostly on the right side, though. Command Center dragging some of the fire away. Another orbital command is taken down. 56 more Zerglings. Some optimistic drones mining from the top right corner. Solar still with so much money in the bank. ByuN with enough army supplied to be a real danger, but clearly the initiative has headed back towards the Zerg. Solar has not rebuilt... how many lurkers? He still has 3 lurkers, which I think he's just been keeping in the Nidus, fermenting them there. But he's taken the center base, which technically has a rich Vespine. Solar has not made to utilize that yet. The vast majority. 25 Hydralisks, the backbone of the composition with their groovy spines and ranged potential. Creep going right down the center as Solar metastasizing across the map. But ByuN now has 150 Terran army supply, which... I mean, Solar's in a great spot, but there's always the risk, if you go too far, that you're not going to be able to rebuild by the time the Terran army comes rolling across the map. Solar clearly, if there was ever a time to try to test out that microbial shroud and its range damage reduction, it's not a snipe damage reduction. That is, I think, the key point that a lot of Zergs would highlight. It's not a Widowmine damage reduction. And technically, it also works for the Terrans. It can backfire very quickly if you step into the wrong location. It will reduce the Hydra damage against Marines and Marauders if they're within the Shroud. Also, you need Infestors, which died a while ago, since they have about as much HP as a toddler. Not sure how that's offensive, but it definitely is. Don't snipe toddlers. All right. Nidus. Tactical Nidus at the front, though. Things slowing down. A few lurkers might get an opportunity. You know, you can just pop them out of the regular. That's a planetary. Just casually chilling in the midst of everything. Relatively cheap compared to even a few ghosts and units. Solar, trying to break through. ByuN's actually starting to build up a bank again. Which, another attack to the north side. Another bio group of ghosts, marines, marauders. And medevacs, of course. No fusion core, no liberator range, no caduceus reactor for the medevac energy regen. Now finally some liberators being added in. The lurkers. Oh, he has a scan over the top. Wings and Banes crashing through. EMP hits the Infestor. Infestor gonna face check the army. Ah, just like me. The Infestor micro a bit lackluster. And Solar starting to run out of steam here. He's lost 55,000 resources. 15,000 more than ByuN so far. 900 Zerglings, 100 Banelings, and those are the ones just lost before attacking because of the quirks of how the unit's lost tab works. So over 1,000 Lings lost, and we're just getting started. Well, at least we're still not that close to a conclusion. Solar losing a lot of supply trying to come around the corner here. The Hydra's getting distracted by the planetary. And is it time to shift back into lurkers? Well, there's 15 ghosts, so... The bio ball rolling around the corner. The Venn diagram of freedom. Covering each other, those liberators with Widowmines underneath. And finally, ByuN finding an opportunity to get some counterattack damage done. Solar, with this more mid-game oriented composition, is going to try to break through one more time. One more time. The Banelings looking for the army, but it's not going to get the planetary, and the Hydra's distracted yet again. Meanwhile, ByuN is tearing through the economy. The medevacs, 4 medevacs worth of bio. The Nidus network under fire. And right now, Solar is, well, his economy is still intact because most of these bases are actually mined out at this stage. But the Baneling nest is taken down, being rebuilt. But Solar, that top left corner is actively mining, which is Solar's best chance here. Meanwhile, the Ghost trying to line up some shots on the Hydras. Instead, will retreat into the medevacs. A surprising amount of them will escape. And Solar has done so much. But in the end, it hasn't really mattered. Well, ByuN, another army, and suddenly Solar, once you start dipping below 150 or so supply, while you still have a healthy drone count, in lower supplies, the Terran army, in almost all cases, is simply better. The utility of Marines, medevacs, Ghosts, and Marauders is unrivaled. The Zerg thrive on these massive fights where they can overwhelm quickly and make it so it's almost impossible to recover. But if you go back and forth with Marines and medevacs, there's almost no more efficient unit composition. Really, right now, Solar's lifeline is the top left corner base, which is not exactly the ideal place to be. He's tried to break on this. It has 53 kills. I don't care if they were all Zerglings, and I'm pretty convinced it wasn't. There were definitely some Hydras. 53 kills on the planetary. Some of the 1,090 Zerglings lost. Let alone the Hydras, let alone the Banes. A Widow Mine gonna take out a Viper, and through all the fire and fury, ByuN has held. A Fungal attempted, not even close. The Infestor's being chased to an extent. He lines up the shots, Fungal interrupts. But the Banelings, the Concave arcs out. And when the Terran starts surrounding the Zerg, things have gone horribly wrong. Microbial Shroud was not researched, though of questionable veracity at this stage. The hatchery, I'm not sure if it was softened up by Vipers or Bio, but it doesn't matter now. And ByuN, bent, pushed away, but not broken. He manages to maintain. I would just want to see how many Zerglings he manages to lose. Oh my, 1,139 links. In Solar, he's not done yet. ByuN has only drawn the income even, and with those mules, you actually mine out bases so quickly. 10 Widow Mines, 16 medevacs. He's going to 18 medevacs. This medevacs for all policy is getting out of hand. You need an actual army. Meanwhile, that one Infestor trying to jostle around in the background, but by the time a Fungal comes out, the Banelings are already whittled down to almost nothing. And that's it. ByuN holds. He survives the onslaught, survives the swarm. Solar loses 78,000 resources, including 1,212 Zerglings, 150 Banelings. But he couldn't close it out. Kind of went back to that mid-game composition that just didn't quite break through. One good fight, but the Planetaries held the back line. These two, every time, just brawling it out. I'm looking forward, even though I won't be able to understand, looking forward to the discussion we're about to have in game number 2. ByuN takes it. He survives it, most accurately. As we go to Throne of the Dunes. Again, remember, get your votes in. The top 2 of the votes in the Team Liquid map contest are guaranteed to be on the ladder in this next season. And even if you don't play the ladder, which I know is only 8 or 9 out of 10 of you, they're the maps that are likely to be in tournaments that you're watching. So, if there are any you particularly like to see, this is your chance to actually affect it directly. Now, a lot of tournaments, since we haven't had that guarantee in quite a while, a lot of tournaments have been kind of picking their own map pool, doing their own kind of mini Team Liquid map contest. But it's a lot easier and a lot more consistent if, you know, the people who make the game and have access to changing the ladder map pool do it themselves, and then we have a coherent. We've had that since at least until it seemed like the intern had taken a sabbatical. But since the intern is back with this new balance patch, it seems also the maps are on the table as well for the first time in quite a while. At least changing on a more regular basis. I'm in favor of, well, there was a time where it was every season. Back in my day, but recently it's just been randomly at whenever the intern had a lunch break, it felt like, and sometimes would pick the wrong maps. That's why we had like double the maps for a season, because they just added maps instead of rotating them. But I digress, and we'll see. Reaper headed across. I am very surprised to see no commentary from either player on that game. Okay. These two so well known for the words per minute and the actions per minute. You will see, though. He's not going command center first this time. Instead, it's an actual Reaper. And 2 gases exposed at the natural. This is... oh my... You gotta drown. Ugh. Three CC, of course, in about the quickest possible fashion that isn't a third or isn't a command center first. So, I'm a little disappointed in the underutilization of infestors in the last game. Solar thought he could win with the Hydroling Bane, and I don't blame him. It was just, he fell short at the finish line. Which, again, that's why Cyril's stunt double. But there was definitely an opportunity to break through. It's just the planetary fortresses did just enough to keep things going. And ByuN eventually built that composition to survive. I do think, obviously, that the ghost changes may have helped ByuN there. But the Banelings were clearly important for Solar as well. And in my opinion, of the patch so far, and I'm going to be giving it, alright, dislike and subscribe, both Protoss versus Terran, and Terran versus Zerg, both statistically and in their feeling in the actual game, are a little bit closer. While Microbial Shroud is a bit of a nothing burger, in my opinion, because Infestor Energy is already so precious without needing another expensive ability, +5 HP on the Banelings is a huge deal. You build a few Banelings per game, believe it or not. Also, it makes Ghosts a bit more vulnerable to specifically that. But Protoss versus Terran, I know since most of the time we watch Clem bully people, it felt a little rough for the Protoss, but statistically, Protoss won much more than Terrans did. Also, statistically, Terrans won 60% versus Zerg. But again, since we watch usually Cyril, it wasn't really represented. But I do think it's a bit closer. Now, Protoss versus Zerg is a disaster, and it didn't get any easier for Zerg, and I'm standing by that. And then getting stormed away, lasting twice as long and doing more damage. But that, until energy recharge doesn't allow oracles to defend literally everything in the early mid-game, that's probably not going to change much. But Terran versus Zerg, well, I think is a bit closer to parity. Or parity, unclear, depending on how you enunciate. We'll see, though. I'm sure we can find some new balance complaints with this next match here, as we're shaping up for yet another macro game. What is this disgusting? So the Liberator, can he get a hatch before it comes into vision? So this may be an interesting demonstration. Again, the edge of the vision range also means that queens can get a little bit closer. And, yeah, Liberator coming in. So the Liberator no longer can see all of what it could potentially shoot, much like the Siege tank. I keep coming back to that before the Terrans get too upset with me. But, again, my favorite kind of surprisingly effective yet targeted nerf to a specific behavior of a unit, making the Liberator worse at destroying mineral lines from the tiny angle that they can actually hit, and still perfectly fine as a fighting unit. So, very well done on that one. Now, here we go. ByuN. As Solar, here we are again. We've gone 7 minutes, and now let the game begin. 123 supply apiece. The queens, ready to deal with it. It was just Terran, it's fine. Oh, that's rude, Susan. It's true. Don't say it out loud. The Banelings trying to get close. Oh, ooh. Manually detonates to get the last one. Was surprised he didn't do it earlier, but the Liberator's back, and it's angrier than ever. One of the queens taken down. Oh, and more at the front. The Spore Crawler looking to outmaneuver. The drones pull away. Baneling speed's still pretty far out. And ByuN trading back and forth with the queens and lings. The brawl will continue. Finally, the Marines forced to pick up. And ByuN, what are the trades looking like? There's a lot of Zerglings, but Solar does have the 6 o'clock base. He's now expanded to the 9 o'clock as well. He has the options for 4th bases, and he has the economy. ByuN is sitting on 3 bases of economy, though this is not a wall. The Zerglings are just gonna run in. The reinforcements will move to intercept, but he's looking the other way, forces the pickup, tries to draw out the Widowmon hit, doesn't work out. Meanwhile, though, this undercuts the momentum of the push. ByuN clearly worrying about all the Zerg. I'm trying to sneak up on Susan, not now. Oh, why did we go this way? She keeps using Apple Maps. I don't know why. Why do we get new maps in general? I was just getting used to the last ones. I fear change. Burned up. This isn't rude. Sorry, I backed out for a moment. 3 more racks on the way. ByuN scaling up that production and shoring up the defenses. Meanwhile, a hive is already completed out of Solar. He's got 5 bases, 86 drones. This is a Zerg's fantasy right now. He's managed to carve out pretty much the best possible economy for this stage of the game, with minimal losses. Still heavy losses, just minimal in the grand scheme of things. A Viper, Adrenal Glands, Hydra range. Still sticking to that Hydra-Ling Bane composition. I don't think the composition was bad. It was just eventually didn't find the cost efficiency he needed. Well, Marines slurped up. Solar actually a little supply blocked after the Overseer gets sniped. No Lurker Den, notably. The upgrades +1 melee, +2 carapace against about to be 2/2 infantry weapons and armor. But Solar not too far behind on the melee attack. Looking to roll around, but the creep has been pushed back for most of it. But the Banelings coming down the ramp, the Marines on the run. Drilling Claws completed. The Widowmon gets a huge chunk, but many of the Marines evaporated by the Banelings as well. Meanwhile, drop comes in. Good target fire, gets a couple extra Banes. Parasitic Bomb on one of the medevacs. But ByuN always seems to have more of those. Maybe too many, to be honest. The creep is contained. In fact, ByuN actively putting a couple Marines out there to try to do so. But Solar is pretty confidently holding on to his bases and is now maxed out, which means it's time to get a little more aggressive. He's got Hive Tech. He knows ByuN wants to keep the pressure on, but the opportunity to counterattack is there. A few Widow Mines on the edge of the creep, clearly trying to bait out and maximize that potential hit. That one Widow Mine at the back lines up a shot, gets a big hit. More Widow Mines, the trail of explosive breadcrumbs being chased across the map. Another drop to the south side, gonna hit the 6 o'clock base simultaneously. Widow Mines retargeting, looking for anything they can find. Banelings, not enough. The 6 o'clock under fire. The Marine stimming forth. Can he target fire? Does he need to? The hatchery pulls back, splits, stims, more than enough. And without Banelings, the Marines, well, the Zerglings get the surround. Adrenal Glands is very much completed. But the Bio army over to the left side, pre-splitting, zoning out, looking for a Parabomb. But the Viper dangerously close. Parasitic Bomb in the Medivacs picks up some of the Marines, but Solar is able to roll through the rest. So ByuN gets some damage done, but it will cost him a chunk of his army supply. Solar, the creep is... it needs to be respread. ByuN has done a very good job of cutting down on it. The reinforcements trickling across the map. The supplies still very close to even, but very noticeably, not a singular ghost on the field unless their cloaking devices have gotten a lot better. 3 in production, but the lurkers have already completed. Lurker range more than halfway done. +1 ranged attack just finished up. Solar moving in to that later game composition. And ByuN gonna be a little behind on the counters. So, the field is scattered with mines. One lucky hit could undercut an entire attack. But the Overseers are alongside most of it. Some random Marines and Marauders headed out. Those Widow Mines just... oh. The Changelings. Scouting Viper? Not exactly the most ideal choice, in my opinion, but, you know. Nidus Network. On the way. We're looking for a reprise of Game 1. We'll see if Solar can adapt to the situation, as any good Zerg might. The Medivacs, though. It is a very similar scenario, but I think Solar has a bit... well, last game he had everything going for him as well. And it didn't end that way. But this time, dragging the mines into the back line of the Terran army. But the Banelings will get hit as well. The Overseers trying to drag the mines. ByuN dipping 30 supply instantaneously. It's not like Solar didn't suffer losses. He's just already rebuilding the Planetary Fortress. But you're going to need a lot more acid to counter a base of that magnitude. Oh, no. What a save! That is a bit disastrous. Again, Solar breaks on the Planetary. He even loses enough Overseers to be supply blocked at 180. That means he can't refill his army as quickly, and he can't wind up for another attack. ByuN threatening that late game hold yet again. We'll see if Solar can pry it out of his grip, or if it comes loose for the second time in a row. More bases on the way. Solar, 88 drones, that full 4 base saturation. But, well, the Widow... oh, juicy hit. Hydra's lunge around. Solar's been mostly using the Hydra lunge in an efficient fashion. I'm using that word a lot, but can't come up with anything better on the fly, let's be honest. And speaking of not flying, the Queen's still trying to push the creep back out, but ByuN's done such a great job of keeping it contained. Despite the danger on the field, he always seems to have another medevac or 5. Why is it 5? ByuN has 11 medevacs. Yeah, it's too many. Hey, maybe we should try talking to the Zerg. You want a piece of meat, boys? No? Are you guys? Hey, guys! Hey! Don't be like that. Oh. Ah! Changeling that spotted for the Nidus. Gunned down. Mercilessly. Negotiations were short. 5 more command centers on the way. ByuN battening down the hatches. That tower defense turtle Terran once again coming together. And we'll see if Solar can break it apart. ByuN has a similar bank, though a lot of bio getting ripped off the field. How many ghosts? 10 ghosts in the composition. 75 SCVs, which we're not quite at the point I'd say that's a bit high. But once he gets all these orbital commands, SCVs are at less and less of a premium. Should have enough for both scans and mules at most times. Hydras, Lings, Banes actually collapsing from the north side. Should have a lunge ready to maybe, well, lunges around the corner, but the terrestrially bound Hydras are struggling to close the distance. Here comes Solar again, swinging around the Nidus. There are 3 lurkers. Solar reluctant to commit to the mass lurker composition. I think that's an active choice. He doesn't want to have the lurkers without the Nidus. Can be a bit of a liability, both in supply and sunk cost generally, in the most literal sense, actually. Sink those lurkers into the ground and hope that they don't have enough ghosts to overwhelm them. Unfortunately, it seems likely they will. 2 more starports on the way as well. As ByuN, where's the fusion core? Just mass Liberator. He still has 10 medevacs. Meanwhile, another Nidus over to the right flank. Single Liberator. Widowmine. Just lunges away. EMP a little off the... 2 EMP. Got a 3rd time's the charm. The creep starting to encroach. Solar has so much. He has a bunch in the bank, but ByuN is not poor on his side of things. Viper coming in again. Not entirely sure what you'd even use here. Well, Banelings crashing through. ByuN forced back. Another chunk of the army is outside the base. And finally, the fusion core is on the way at the natural. Caduceus Reactor, probably the most obvious choice. Yanks out some of the Liberators. The Planetary Fortress still not dying. Still not dying. The Banelings have to be used. But the Lurkers finally find an angle on the right side. And ByuN will have to reposition to deal with it. 6 Liberators in production. But that means a short time where Solar's army definitely outstrips that of ByuN. The Lurkers reposition. Gonna need a scan to actually deal with them. Uses it. Meanwhile, the Ghost moving forward, snipes out the Hydralisk. Widowmine's gonna take some big bites, but 1 drawn out. 1 Lurker survived. But ByuN on the high ground holding strong. Half a dozen Liberators will certainly change the dynamic. Infestors on the way. Couple more Vipers in production. But ByuN has yet again held. Though his bank is now exhausted. Building that many Liberators is quite expensive, as we can see now. Though Solar is actually running out of minerals. He's had the income lead for all but a little bit of Mule Mountain. EMP hits one of the Infestors, another one. Infestors now just fancy eggplants. As, yeah, another reason why I think the Microbial Shroud is a bit optimistic, considering, you know. But the Venn diagram of freedom again. The Olympic rings here. But the Ghost getting a little far forward, and the Banelings cutting into them. The liberation is at hand. Though Solar, Liberator is pretty notorious for their lack of mobility. Solar without a Spire. Eventually the Liberator count gets so damn high. He got a fusion core, but never upgraded Liberator range, nor Caduceus Reactor. And another one. Still hits enough of the drones, even with the reduced vision. Spore Crawler gonna reposition, but a hatchery being hit in the top left. The snipe's coming out. Oh, and the Hydra's getting gunned down one by one. A huge attack gonna hit this planetary. That should be enough. Oh no. It's happening again. The planetary with 36 kills. The Banelings trickling in. And the planetary holds. Solar loses a base on the left side. ByuN finally taken down on the right. Aspire in production. Finally inspired to do so. With this many Liberators, 7 Liberators and counting, the banks have been drained. Solar is almost forced to go Infestors now. We're in one of those situations where the economy has gotten so imbalanced, I mean in the literal sense, he has so much gas and so few minerals, that he has almost no choice but to build Infestors. So will we see the, like, 8 Infestor production tab? Well, not right now. He's maxed out, but you know what I mean. The Bio Army has to cancel in the top left. This planetary, he sets his sights on it. We don't mind, thins things out again. The planetary still fighting. Would you die? 57 kills, 60 kills, 64, and finally taken down. And the units just kind of trickling into their death. Another planetary at the natural. Gonna make this almost impossible. Scans across the board. When you have 8 orbital commands, you can have more scans than a Costco checkout aisle. And ByuN, Terran through the base at the 9 o'clock yet again. Solar still is maxed out. ByuN not really that close. 170 supply, and the army on the left flank. He picks up the 3 medevacs. There's actually a missile turret zoning things out. A Cero Fester waiting for its moment, and that may be, as seems to be the case in so many of these games, the ticket. Parasitic Bomb does not stack, but is softening up many of the Liberators mid-map. ByuN refuses to die. Ricky! Ricky, the accidental swarm host, is in production. It's been a while, but it's been a stressful game as well. The burrowed festers right underneath the army. The infestor sign is not present unless they actually move. If he just scanned it, but he hasn't revealed it. The first fungal may be the last, one way or another. As fool me once, I don't think ByuN's gonna get fooled again. The infestor is in position. The Hydra's fighting directly into the Liberators. Needs to land it on the ghosts. I can't tell if the Queens came through the Nidus or they just did it the old-fashioned way. Liberator still moving forward. ByuN has equal army supply, but he doesn't have anything in the bank. The Infestor, it's pretty obvious when it is actually moving, but the Viper, Parasitic Bomb, sets it up, and he lands it! That's 2! And he gets the whole army! Rolls right through! The money shot with the fungal! And ByuN plummets 60 supply in seconds. The Infestor found the opportunity to reveal itself. Yeah, it's a bit late for that. ByuN with the pre-scan, and there is another one on the field. But Solar still has the economy to rebuild. And this time around, with the plot device Infestor, ByuN finally stacking up a little bit too much, and Solar waited for his moment, and it finally came. GG! In 2 different languages. Solar finally able to break the army. Another 1,000 Zerglings is the cost. At this time around, only losing 15,000 less resources than his Terran opponent. ByuN, did he ever get Liberator range? No. No Caduceus Reactor, no Liberator range. ByuN stressed clearly against this mass unit composition. But again, that's why I think Microbial Shroud is such a red herring. The fungal still, like, it still wins the game. All right? If you hit it, it wins the game. If you don't hit it... Now, I do think these are 2 players who are very set in how they play the game. And it's going to take quite a while to adapt Pretty much Cyril's going to show how to do it, and then most Zergs are going to try and fail and go back to how they played before. Whereas for Terran, ByuN has played the same way for 15 years straight, and he's not going to change now. All right, it's the Zergs who should change. That's lore accurate. If I can't build Marines, Marauders, Medevacs, and Ghosts, that's not a game I want to play. Okay, Grandpa. I'm not sure if the Liberators were it. Kind of hard to tell. Liberators are good, but in moderation. As a mass unit composition, while very good, they can falter to the swarm-style Zerg that Solar is naturally inclined to head towards. So now we see. Two games in a row of the almost the same exchange. Different maps, well, still very macro maps. The adjustments being Solar a little bit more reliably having those infestors, and a little bit less focus on lurkers, not like he had a lot in the first game. Whereas ByuN, instead of mass Ghost Mine, he leaned more heavily into the Liberators. Here we go. This time, I'm reasonably sure they were just talking about Cloud Kingdom in Game 1, but it's time. Oh, yeah, they're going... Wow. I was wondering why we didn't get the commentary. Well, maybe it's fair now. No, stop it. Why does everything have to have ads? Like and subscribe. All right, let's see. That's right. In the backyard. Minerals in the backyard can't get through. Only workers pass. Ah, they're talking about the map still. So. The worker-only path. So, if you're wondering how often... I don't know if I mentioned that Solar literally came back from vacation. Like, a couple days before this tournament. So, these pro gamers... getting so lazy, taking like 2-week vacations once a career. But yeah. So this may be the first time Solar's played the map. That's why it wasn't in the Team Liquid map contest. This from Comeback TV's, the French organization's Monday Night Weeklies, which you should check out if you got an opportunity live. But we've accepted that the community organizations will be doing the map contest maps, at least until the voting is ended, which will be... Well, hopefully you watched this before then. But, you know, if you're one of the people wondering how we got here, 10 million subscribers in the year 2027? Wow, that's crazy. StarCraft 2 has had such a resurgence with the announcement of StarCraft 3. Emotional damage. StarCraft 3. Play now on iPhone or Android. Brought to you by Nexon. Buy your battle pass and equip Jim Raynor with more ammo today so he can use that gun that one-shots Hydralisk on everyone. 5-star. The Enclave base. Double engineer. ByuN. Why do you like this? The Hellions can't get in, right? He tested it. Just making sure. ByuN laughing at him. Surprise! 1-1's on the way. The queens, calmly, politely, yet firmly, asking the Hellions to get the hell out, if you would. That was pretty cringe, Winter. And that was meta. Stop breaking the fourth wall. We can barely build walls. That doesn't really follow in the context of all of this. That's not really important either. Just say the thing in the voice. People aren't listening. It's game 3. See, now that's meta. Sorry. The blockade eventually going to be taken down sometime this week by the Zergling. It is just a fancy set of rocks. Lair is on the way with a lot of gas. Please, I dare not dream. Please. For once, Solar. Please. Mutas! It's happening! Finally! Somebody's gonna try it. So the Spire is 5 seconds quicker and 50-50 less. Half a Muta less. Now, does that make... I think in some niche scenarios, I don't think that changes the dynamic of a strong glance knocking Mutas out of the sky. But ByuN has a very predictable style. He's going to have Marines and Medevacs. He's going to move out with set Marines and Medevacs. Pretty much as soon as he has his Stim combat shield, and he already has 1-1. So the Mutas, especially a little bit quicker, could blindside him entirely and completely undercut the momentum in the game. And since Mutas were a regular occurrence, I feel like Zergs have not been able to maintain... Oh. Queen's taken down, but some of the Marines gonna be caught by the Banes. Did he lose a medevac? He just did, around the side. Kind of understated there, but 5 Mutas on the way. Now, ByuN trying to abuse the fact that units can't move back and forth. Air units perfectly fine. The knitting crew still trying to sneak up on them, but the creep is still not exactly the ideal pathing. Another queen gun down, but 1 toe on the creep is just enough. If you'd like to see more Zerg toes, check out my Dronely fans by liking and subscribe. So we're trying to move forward. The Mutas now out, going for the mass Muta production as well. It's gonna be Mutaling Bane. Lings, Banes. The Mutas still, I think, unscouted. Not a single missile turret. So clearly ByuN not anticipating the Mutalisks to start things out. And now Solar's going to be able to use this sort of location. And in fact, the workers, long distance mining through the worker path is going to work against him. May even be able to delay the 4th base, which he built on location greedily. 9 SCVs dead to the first wave of Mutalisks. And Solar is wasting no time and already taking up towards Hive. The Mutas getting exactly what they need to get done. Solar's already up 30 supply, and Medevacs are no longer going to have the free reign that they once enjoyed. The Muta count still growing, despite the clear transition to... Oh, it's going to be Ultras on Hive Tag. That makes the most sense. Medevac taken out of the sky. The sky's no longer a free flyer zone. Unfortunately, a single Widow Mine. Quite a decent trade. Should be able to take it out. No, Drilling Claws is done, so... Maybe he'll just manually detonate some Banes. Needs some Overseers. Finally gonna see it. ByuN trying to move forward. He's working on 2-2. It's almost done. Baneling speed with that +5 HP. Now there as well. 10 seconds until the infantry weapons and armor upgrades. And the army supply is very similar here. That means the Terran army in a heads-up fight is in a better spot. But if their heads are too far up and looking at the Mutas instead of the Lings and Banes on the ground, well, that could be something else entirely. Just gonna go straight for the missile turret. The repair is there, but it's not enough. The Mutas just overwhelm it. A single turret's not gonna cut it. Gets on top of the Marines, will slice right through them, and ByuN is pulling all the way back. Wow, a huge win here for Solar. Not just in terms of damage, but in total map control. ByuN realizing that immediately and moved most of his units back on the field. But I think the damage is already done. Mutas taking down. Ooh, the Widow Mine still. The upgrades aren't there for Solar. He doesn't want to engage without the Mutas. There's still so many Lings and Banes. The Banelings just crash into the Marauders. The DPS of the Marines still very high. Splits some off. The Mutas continuing to be replenished. 17 Mutalisks. Adrenal glands on the way. Solar with 200 supply. Though, if you build too many Mutas, there's still the danger of them all evaporating in just a handful of Widowmine hits. That is part of the reason why they're usually not the mid to late game choice. They just don't stack up. Or they do stack up, which is much of the problem. And Ultraless Cavern, though, is on the way. Muta, Ling, Bane directly into the Ultras. You encourage them to build these anti-Mutas, the Marines, the Mines, which the Ultras can shrug off and shoulder through. I think Solar is in a great position. But the army supply? 2-2's now done for Solar. He could really benefit, I think, from Burrow as well. The Muta's flying in again. The Widow Mine is taken down. The missile turret next on the agenda. A lot of SCVs will go down with it, if he gets it at all. But the main army is heading forward. This is the main danger, though. Either you lose some economy to the Mutas, or focus on the defense, and that leaves you with less attention, less opportunity to micro perfectly against the Lings and Banes on the field. And speaking, a single Marauder, though, and, wow, actually lives. Well, that was not incredibly... 6-7 Banelings crash into the Marauder after tanking the rest of the Lings. Look what they need to mimic a fraction of our power. Chitinous Plenty is on the way for the Ultraless. Lings and Banes ready to trickle through. The Creep, a springboard. The Marines, but Drilling Claws. Oh, so dangerous. He's trying to distract the mines. Manages to avoid any critical hits, at least for now. A Widow Mine dragged home. And ByuN getting kind of close to 200 supply here. The Marauder's out in front, volunteered as tribute. And the Marines, where are the Mutas? Just hanging out. It's a lot of army supply, not with the fight. He did the damage. He may have set up the Ultralisks. But ByuN is closing in on 3-3. And if he has enough mines and Marauders, the Ultras aren't necessarily the existential threat that Solar's really hoping they'll be. Really trying to deal with these mines, but struggling to do so in a coherent fashion. Meanwhile, though, a single missile turret is not enough. Back at home, the Mutas swing around again. The Ultras leading the charge, and that's going to make things a lot more difficult. The Mutas clearing out another base, a dozen SCVs. The engineering base under fire, but the Marines going to take down the Mutas. Another Widow Mine. Things thinning out, but the Ultras around the corner. ByuN finished, well, he's going to finish +3 armor. Always gets the armor slightly before the weapons. Interesting. It's pretty much unique to ByuN as well, but the Mutas keeping him on his toes here. But with the stims, he can't help but bounce around. The Widow Mine's dragged out on the field. Needs to clear them up as soon as possible. The Ultras are closing in yet another planetary fortress, but the Banelings just roll in. The ByuN, again the planetary. He keeps diving on the planetaries and just belly flopping with the army. And if Solar could avoid these sort of fights, he'd be in such a good spot. And he's still in a good spot, but like so much better. There's a scale of things, okay? And right now we're on the far end of it, just like your mother. So Solar just needs to not lose a third of his army when fighting planetaries, all right? That's it. That's that. Easier said than done. So much easier said than done. It's not even the planetary itself, it's the attention. It's the aggro it draws from units. Makes it a lot easier for the Terrans to pick their targets when the Ultras are clustered around the planetary and the Banelings are stuck behind, as opposed to on the open field. But speaking of the open field, ByuN looking the other way for a moment, the Banelings crash through the front line. But the Widow Mines will try to turn the tides as we come around the corner. One Ultra targeted down, more Widow Mines. Gonna thin out so much of this. The planetary again! Not again! He breaks upon it, but the Mutas in the main base getting chased down. Solar! I'll do it again. He got 60 more Zerglings, 20 more Banelings, more Ultras in production, and ByuN starting to run out of units on the field. But he does still have the economy. He's slapping it together with the mules and the surviving SCVs. And notably, Solar has not used the Mutas in the main fight. He's kept them alive, for better or worse. Knowing his limits, I guess, when it comes to the micro, and keeping them a threat to the economy, as opposed to maybe something that's one and done with the army. But the Zerglings, on the other hand, always expendable. Only 300 so far this game, but the Banelings rolling past, and he may finally break the planetary. But we have to ask ourselves that eternal caster question. Have you liked and subscribed? And at what cost? He drops 40 supply in Lings and Banes. 8 more Mutas. 11 more Mutas? He goes back to the Muta list. Quite a Muta risk. Not a single late-game spellcaster from either side. Just the way we all like it. Mutas, Lings, Banes against Marauders, Mines, Marines, and Medevacs. The Ultras still the elephant in the room. The Mutas dragging out some of the mines. He's up to 20 of them again. There's a rich Vespine base down the center I neglected to mention, and is clearly helping build that gas economy, of which Solar has so much more. Does he have 1,400 more gas a minute? That is not a miss. That's accurate. That is 18 more. That is 18 Mutas a minute. What? He's gonna corner the market. The Ultra cleaving through, but still the Bio Army is starting to thin out the Ultras. There's only 2 left. The Queen's trying to slap them all together. And just 1 Ultra Bio. Here come the Mutas! This is it! Closing in on the army. He needs to get the damage done here, but there's almost no Marines. There's no more Mutas than Marines left over. The Mutas are finally fighting. +3 attack is done. The Lisks and the Lings overrunning on the field in this old school Zerg swarm. It's kind of confusing because there's a bunch of changelings here. But I think the Mutas are doing it. There's just not enough left. The Widow Mines thinning out. But they haven't whittled down the critical mass of Mutas. A couple more mines getting taken out. The Overseer count is high enough. Knocking down Medevacs one at a time. The +3 Mutas. A force to be reckoned with. As long as they're able to get close. And ByuN trickling out anti-air against the swell of Mutas. ByuN playing ring around the command center. The Glaives take out one of the Medevacs. Somehow, where did the Overseers go? Oh, they're here now, but the Widow Mines gonna be dragged out. The minefield recharging, but not quite there yet. He's gonna be able to clear it up. ByuN down 60 supply. He doesn't have the economy to rebuild. He doesn't have any Thors to thin out the Mutas. Who's building Thor? Well, he does now. He just built one. But that's the usual. I almost forgot that. Brenda, what are you doing? I'm watching. Oh, and dragging the Widow Mines! Fall on your own grenade! GG! Solar strikes back with the Mutaling Bane style. A blast from the past and maybe back to the future. Solar takes it 2-1. ByuN with his inflexible yet infinitely flexible bio style. Almost enough to turn it around in every game, including the successful game 1. I guess that's not almost enough. I guess almost enough, but he did it. Oh, shut up. But Mutas, are they back? I think the map somewhat uniquely suited to it, as drops are obviously a priority. I don't think that turns them into a regular option, as if there was a single missile turret in each mineral line, the initial Mutas would be severely blunted and their potential momentum reduced dramatically. And even then, ByuN almost turned the tides. Despite the damage the Mutas did, despite the quick Ultras, the Lings, the Banes, it was still touch and go. But Solar touched enough, and ByuN will now be going out of this tournament. And Jimmy will be editing that out. Thank you. But not a single use of Microbial Shroud, but plenty of Banelings and Widow Mines in this series alongside the Ghosts. These two always, except for when they're not, a fun time with even discussing the maps mid-series. A lot of fun to watch. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Thank you for watching. If you got the means of motivation, you also check out Patreon, YouTube membership, but liking and subscribing is still free, at least for now. So, thank you to our meal tier patrons bringing in the extra minerals. Big Jig, Devin, Dor, Drake, Kate, Mario, Sue. Glad you still enjoy. Now, everyone, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Good luck, have fun. Stay chill.